and many of our members are here today. Thank you for joining us. We work together with law enforcement agencies, the district attorney's office, the judiciary, and many other partners to develop strategies to deal with crime and criminal justice related issues. We know that it costs $76 per day to incarcerate anyone in the Dallas County Jail, when it costs us about $40 to $50 to give them the support and the resources that they need to get back into society. We all know that studies show that incarceration does nothing to reduce recidivism, which is also very high, 40% or more in 4 or 5 years in the state of Texas. And of course, the cycle of crime and recidivism has especially heavy impact in our minority communities, which often suffer higher incarceration rates. And that's why meetings like these are so important. Working with the district attorney's office, the chiefs of police, and with groups like Unlocking Doors, with Dr. Crane, which is also with us tonight, can help us to help offenders with reentry into society. It has been shown that programs like this stop the recidivism rate. And not only that, can cut and translate directly into a reduction of crime, which give us safer neighborhoods, and more importantly, gives offenders the opportunity to live productive lives with a job and making positive contributions to our community. Tonight, I'm very proud to have Dallas Police Chief Eddie Garcia with us to tell us about his plans and ideas to fight crime in the city of Dallas and in Oak Cliff. And of course, we have someone that I love and respect for many years, our district attorney, the Honorable John Creuzot. DA Creuzot will brief us on some of his strategies and initiatives, and more importantly, a smarter way to fight crime. And of course, it's my honor to have tonight, and I want to thank Ashley Long and Herminia Ramon with Councilman West office, as well as Brooke Love and Blanca Torres with my office in Dallas County District Org. Finally, I want to thank our guests, DA Creuzot and Chief Garcia, for taking time to be with us to address these very important issues. And now it's my privilege to introduce someone that needs no introduction, but I know how brilliant he has been fighting criminal justice changes. So it's my honor to introduce our district attorney, the Honorable John Creuzot, which is a retired judge and an award-winning lawyer with more than 3 decades of experience in the criminal justice system. In addition to his trusted service on both sides of the bench, Honorable Creuzot has earned a national reputation for his innovation work on drug courts, criminal justice reform, and evidence-based sentencing. He regularly appears in the news and on television as expert on these and other criminal justice topics. After his retirement from the judiciary, Dallas County honored Judge Creuzot by renaming its drug treatment facility to the Honorable Judge John Creuzot Judicial Treatment Center in May of 2013. The center provides an intensive residential program as an alternative to incarceration for Dallas County probationers. Of course, he has numerous awards that I will be here for 10 minutes just saying half of them. And of course, he served in multiple boards and commissions, which I have the honor to serve with in the past. He is a member of the Holy Trinity Catholic Church and currently lives in East Dallas with his son. Honorable Creuzot, thank you so much for being with us. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia, and thank you for inviting me and allowing me to participate. It's truly a pleasure and an honor. And as the district attorney for Dallas County, thank you to everyone who is here participating, watching, and I hope you all have questions. I think the first thing I need to do really is, it's been done numerous times, but once again, I want to make sure that this community understands the importance of an outstanding police chief such as Chief Garcia to lead the Dallas Police Department. From my perspective as the district attorney, the Dallas Police Department gives us about 50% of our cases. And for people who don't know, let me just spend a few moments quickly talking about the district attorney's office. We have jurisdictions that file cases with us, about 40 jurisdictions. That includes all of our municipalities, that includes DART, school districts, hospital districts, and what have you. And so we take in over 50,000 criminal cases a year. We operate in the Crowley Courts building. Most of our business is there. We have 30 courts. We have 17 felony courts and 13 misdemeanor courts. This office employs about 500 people, and about 240 to 250 of those are attorneys, and the rest are investigators and support staff. And we're very happy to work as public servants for Dallas County to keep Dallas County safe. Some of the things that you've mentioned that we've done, that I've done, and the office has done, is to really look at the root causes of a lot of crime, which is substance abuse, mental health. Of course, poverty is a big driver of crime. And rather than waiting for things to happen and then placing people in jail, this administration has been very proactive in getting in front of crime and trying to stop it and address the underlying reasons before it happens. Chief Garcia, when he introduced his crime plan a week or two ago to the Dallas City Council, said something that he and I agree wholeheartedly, and that is we'd rather not see crime. We'd rather get in front of it. And so Chief Garcia has introduced a very robust, promising crime plan that has two significant parts to it. One is looking at very small areas of town where there's a lot of crime, excuse me, and getting his troops and his policemen there and with different strategies to get in front of crime and to make the community safe. That includes working with city departments such as code and what have you, working with our fire department, working with our hospital districts to get services out to clean up the neighborhoods and make our neighborhoods a better place to live and give the citizens of those neighborhoods hope where there hasn't been hope in the past. I join him in that. One of the other things that he wants to do is called focused deterrence, and that is focusing on individuals who have a high likelihood of committing crimes, especially violent crimes, and taking services to them. And that's where Christina Melton Crane and Unlocking Doors comes in. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. But I just wanted to say what it is that we have planned to do in the district attorney's office. Having been there 2.5 years, we have another 1.5 years, and what are our initiatives to continue our reform of the criminal justice system. I think that everybody knows that we made a decision early on that looking at who was arrested for small amounts of marijuana, being mostly Black and brown people in the county, up to 90% per year, that and looking at the amount of time that our police officers take to book these people in. And then when the law changed, requiring testing of marijuana, even as far back as August of 2020, by not prosecuting those cases, we did several things. Number one, we reduced racial disparity in who's brought to jail and who's prosecuted. Number two, with the police chief's policies of not prosecuting individuals for small amounts of marijuana unless very specific circumstances are met, we're allowing the police officers, he's allowing the police officers to not be in the jail, but to be on the streets where we need them. And they can respond to calls and they can do the more focused type of patrolling that he has asked for and is calling for and is implementing. And the other thing is we've saved the city at least $500,000 as of August and not having to test those substances. So we're going to continue to do that. We're expanding our reach also from the district attorney's office into the mental health arena. We know that many people wind up in jail because they're homeless or they're mentally ill or both. And so we made a policy pronouncement that we're not going to prosecute simple criminal trespass of those who are homeless and mentally ill. And what does that do? Well, instead of allowing them to just be on the streets, we're actually in the process with your help, Dr. Garcia, and your commissioners, fellow commissioners, and the county judge. We're developing a facility which will open this year in 2021, where those individuals can be taken by the police departments there to the facility. And what happens when they get there? First, they can get wraparound services, which includes food, which includes medication. Parkland will be there with a team of doctors and psychiatric nurses. And we'll have people who can, social workers who can meet the needs of these individuals, including a home. And what we want to do, instead of this revolving door of going in and out of jail, and especially the most expensive parts of the jail, we want to deliver services. Chief Garcia and I are in discussions with the city. As you know, we're expanding right care, and that's something he can talk more about. But what we're trying to do is to intervene with the mentally ill and people in crisis, and intervene with them before there's an offense or before there's a crime committed. And so the Dallas County District Attorney's Office is very excited about that initiative. We're happy that Chief Garcia is expanding it. And soon we'll announce a partnership between the District Attorney's Office and the Police Department, where we're going to make, from forfeited funds, we're going to make a significant contribution to that effort. And the goal is to help Chief Garcia and his staff expand the number of individuals in that program who work in it, and also to deliver the service of the right care service to more portions of our Dallas city community. We know that we have a homeless population issue. We seem to fluctuate between a few thousand. It's hard to count because a lot of people don't want to be counted, but we know that this money will go a long way to help the police chief implement his vision of 21st century policing, which is not that everybody needs to go to jail, but we need to intervene where we can and stop the crime and cure the person and help the person. One of the other things that we're looking at is more pretrial intervention programs. We know that certain offenses have very low recidivism rates, and we also know that it's not necessary to rehabilitate a person because a lot of people just don't need that level of service that the probation department has, that we can do pretrial intervention agreements, especially for first-time offenders for low-level offenses. And so we are in the process of working not only with our police agencies, but with our probation department, our Dallas County Community Supervision and Corrections Department. We commonly call it probation, but that's the actual name. We have a new director who's come on as of March 1st, and we're very excited in the DA's office to work with him. And we are developing more programs to intervene short of going to court, being placed on probation, for low-level offenders who pretty much are self-correctors. We know that these people exist, and we also know to the extent that they need services that we're able to do it in the community. And so there's no need for the greater complexity of probation. We can do it, and we're more than happy and more than willing to do that. What does that do for the person? Well, first of all, it solves the underlying problems. Most importantly, it does that. But number two, it allows them to correct their behavior without a criminal conviction or criminal record hanging around them, around their necks. And so we're very excited. We're looking at similar programs, excuse me, in Houston and other places in Texas and across the nation. And we're going to pull that research together, and we're going to put together the best pieces of that and work with our community and try to solve these underlying problems. We're looking at, for example, first-time DWI offenders. They have a very, very low recidivism rate. Many people are not necessarily alcoholics. They may need some lower level of outpatient treatment. And if so, we're going to work with community partners to do that. And we hope to get more people through and without those criminal convictions. So we're looking at that and focusing on that. What else are we doing? We're working right now specifically with the city of Garland on an aspect of the Chiefs program that I talked about, and that's focused deterrence. What is that? Well, we know there's research out there. It's been put in place in other cities, and we've reduced violent crime by looking at high-risk individuals to commit violent crime. Oftentimes, these are our young people. They're in gangs. They don't have a way out. They need a way out. They may want a way out. It may be a mental health issue. It may be a substance abuse. It may be just their circumstances, their family circumstances. We know from research on people who come in on cases that they suffer from trauma and other things that cause their criminal behavior. Obviously, they're making poor decisions. And so we've already begun a conversation with Christina Melton Crane and Unlocking Doors. And our goal there is to work with her and her community partners, partners in the community, be it faith-based or otherwise, nonprofits. And we hope to work with her to get assessments and get focused on services, needed services. And we think, in fact, we know that we can reduce a lot of crimes, especially the low-level crimes. But what we want to do is stop a person from becoming a criminal and graduating up to higher level crimes. And so we're looking forward to our partnerships with everybody to do that. One other area, last thing I want to talk about is probation reform. One of the things that I did when I came into office was to reduce the amount of years, presumptive years for someone being on probation. We know from research that 10 years is, in most instances, way too long. And a person doesn't have an opportunity to get off probation, and they lose faith, they lose hope, violate probation, and wind up going to prison. So we've done that. The other thing is we're working with our probation department now that we don't put people in jail for violating their probation for things like not paying fines and fees or not doing community service. And so we're working with that. We've taken over the filing of the motions, and basically we're looking at a person may have violated the probation, but if it's not to the level that they are a threat to the community or a threat to public safety, we're going to continue to work with them and encourage the judges and the probation department to continue to work with them. We're going to continue our expunction program. We've done that every year. We're started by my predecessor, Faith Johnson, so all credit goes to her. And we're going to continue to do that. We hope this year that we will surpass 1,000 people who've had their records expunged. That's very important for some people, especially if it's the only thing and it's holding them back. We have watched people get that expunction, tearfully get it, and thank us for doing it. It was the difference in a job, an apartment, or whatever. It's the difference in moving forward in life. And so those are the things that we're going to focus on in the immediate future. And we continue to work with our commissioners court and all of our police agencies in Dallas County to make Dallas County as safe as we can. So thank you for inviting me. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you for giving us those words. And now it will be the next item on our agenda is to go ahead and Chief Garcia will give us his priorities for the next year. Chief.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Obviously, I may be new to the Dallas area. Certainly, I'm not new to policing. I've been in law enforcement for 30 years. The last 5 years as the chief of police in San Jose, California. And I'm very happy to be here in the city of Dallas. To be honest with you, I mean, there's a lot of things that drew me to Dallas. To be honest, I was born in San Juan, Puerto Rico. I moved to California when I was young, learned how to speak English in San Jose, California. And what people say, and it might sound kind of corny, but I was a Dallas Cowboy fan before I even spoke English. So that's one thing. I've been to the city many times. I love its diversity. And, it brought me here. One way or the other, I was going to retire in North Texas. And so I'd rather be here as your police chief and go through that. We've hit the ground running in these last 3 months. The 3 months have felt a little longer than 3 months, but I don't mean that in a bad way because so much has happened. We've done a lot of things. A lot of things have affected the department, some negative, but mostly all positive. There isn't a major city chief in America that doesn't know the issues surrounding policing in major cities in the country, whether it be from trust in our community, whether it be to rise in violence. And those are things that we're working on. I've been so impressed with the work of our men and women as we go out and do our job. We have a mantra that we've begun, and that is a concept of weed and seed. Weed and seed was a federal grant program back when I started in the early 90s, where we did exactly that. We would weed the element that was preying on our communities, but then we would piggyback and seed our neighborhoods with positivity. And those things are very important to me. They're very important to the department, and we're going to move in that way. Some of our goals, some of my goals personally that I have for the department is truly increasing police morale, increasing the morale of the men and women that do this job, that keep our communities safe, that sacrifice as much as they do. I'm not going to stay in the office kind of chief. And I've been throughout every station. I've spoken to our rank and file, to our command staff, to our business community, to our community at large in each station. And although we are, one large city, it's almost as if we have 7 smaller cities that make up a large city, all with their different priorities. But I found, that I've not heard communities not want us, not need us in their areas to keep them safe. They want to be policed fairly and justly, and we will do that. But they certainly do not want us to go away. The next part, and one of our goals that we have, is reducing violent crime. We have to come in collectively and reduce violent crime, and I'll get into it in a little bit. And my partner, Judge Creuzot, mentioned a lot of the points that of our crime plan, which I'm very fortunate that I have his buy-in as well, which is very important to me and very important to our mission and our goals. But reduction of violent crime is something that's very important now, and I'll say this many times. I've said this since day one. Long-term violent crime in the city of Dallas, the police department is not going to be able to reduce that long-term. We are a police department, is that over-the-counter fever medication that someone takes that you can't take for long. And when you stop taking it, unless you deal with the actual illness, will not go away. And we know that long-term violence, particularly in most of our neighborhoods, is driven by poverty, lack of education. We have to reduce unemployment, food shortages. As the judge mentioned, mental health is very important, and so we have to do that. And so we know that that's a priority, and I'll get into that in a little bit. Community trust is a big issue. We know that gaining the trust from our community and continuing to increase that is something that's very, very important. No longer can police departments gauge their success or failure simply by the reduction of crime. If those reductions come with less trust in their police department, then it's not truly success. We need to be we need to have synergy, and that really means lowering crime while at the same time increasing community trust. And I believe, and I know that is possible. We need to grow our police department. We need to ensure that we have officers that are available to respond to the needs of our community, and know that we need to look internal as we grow. We have to grow, but we have to grow responsibly. As we mentioned just recently, we just kicked off our violent crime reduction plan. It's made up of 3 major portions. The first one is our focused intelligence-led policing in certain grids, certain areas. The footprint of us in a police department being there, because oftentimes communities feel, particularly communities of color that are vulnerable, feel that a police department may be over-policing, over-saturation, which is stop and frisk or dragnet type tactics. And our technique and our tactic is certainly not that. Our strategy is focused, offender-based, to ensure that we're concentrating on the individuals that are most high at risk, that are continuing to plague our community and continue to commit crimes. And visibility. We're not there to stop everything in neighborhoods. We are there to ensure that our neighborhoods in those particular grids are safe. As we go through this crime plan, the crime plan is backed by scientific data. It truly is the best that criminology has to offer in the last at least decade. And we know that if we do our hotspot policing and we're focused, it can be very impactful. And we are starting to see some results. The other dynamic that we've mentioned when it comes to community outreach is we're going to use the same map. And what I mean about using the same map is the same areas that we are concentrating our efforts to reduce violent crime are the very same areas that we will be working just as hard at community engagement, food giveaways, giving things away to kids, having those interactions with our community and doing positivity in those neighborhoods are the same areas where we're going to be working just as hard. And that's very, very important to build that community trust in those neighborhoods. The next part of our plan is called place network investigations. And that is in our neighborhoods, particularly in those grids, there are locations and areas where the criminal element like to meet. where the criminal element meet, plan their crimes, whether they're dealing drugs in a neighborhood, whether they're selling guns, whether they're planning the robberies, the criminal element meets somewhere. And the disruption of that is extremely important to the overall health of a neighborhood. Now, when we mentioned before, the police department can't do this on its own. And so, as the judge alluded to, we will be utilizing the help of code enforcement, of streets and traffic, of transportation, public works, any department that we think can tie into this particular area to strengthen, we need to lean on to help. And that's very important to us. And we know that we can't just do it on our own. Just recently when I began, there was a house that our narcotics unit hit in a neighborhood that we were getting a lot of complaints from. Was dealing narcotics, and it was a high risk area with weapons. And it was the 9th time that a search warrant had been conducted on that property, and at least in the last 3 years. Well, we need to move ahead on that and to ensure that we don't go back 9 times to a place, that we can help solve the problem with the help of other city departments, so that we can ensure that our neighborhoods are strong. As I had mentioned before, not a stay in the office kind of chief. I've been through many of the neighborhoods in the city of Dallas already in my short almost 4 months now. I have not heard one neighborhood ask for less presence. In fact, they're asking for more presence, and for these particular issues that I'm mentioning to you. And now we're going to do it fairly, and that's what everyone demands, and we will do that. But these are the complaints that we're hearing from our community. The last piece of it, as the judge had mentioned, is our focus deterrence and blight reduction. Focus deterrence is really concentrating on a group of at-risk, high-risk individuals, where we bring them in, have a conversation with them through myself, Judge Creuzot, federal partners, victim stories, neighborhood stories, witness stories of the impacts that violent crime has in their neighborhoods, and to let people know that we're not going to tolerate that. We talk about the fact that long-term, we're not going to arrest our way into a safer Dallas, but we need short-term solutions. We simply can't wait for the long-term solutions to play out, because our men and women are needed on the front end to ensure that we do not have the violence that we have currently on our streets. And we know that, and we explain that, how we're not going to tolerate it. And we'll use every tool possible to ensure that our community safety is number one. But then on the backside of that, as we mentioned before, we have to come in with positivity and say, but if you do not want that life, we need to have a robust set of programs and services that are helpful to the police, from mental health, substance abuse, job training, education, and health, things of that nature. Bring outside agencies, have public-private partnerships with regards to things that we can do in those communities to strengthen them, because it's extremely important. And so then on the back end of that as well is blight reduction, and to ensure that people are proud of the areas they live in. I made mention a few times before, I've gone on patrol in a few areas of the city, and I was taken aback patrolling one particular area of the city where there were 12 streetlights out in one city block. And to me, I didn't know what was worse, the fact that 12 streetlights were out, or the fact that the community felt that it was okay to live like that. And it's not. And we need to send a message that to our community that's not okay, to let us know. And we're going to work closely together with our city and our other city departments to ensure that those type of incidents are reported by all of us in order to make a community stronger, which is extremely, extremely important. It's been fantastic that, whenever you come up with plans such as this, getting the buy-in from your rank and file is important. We've met with community leaders that have bought into that plan as well. And then just as important is that the men and women that are going to be following through with the initial plans have bought into this plan as well, and truly want to make a safer Dallas. As we talk about things that we're going to do as a police department with regards to initiatives, some of the things that we are going to do is we're going to institute bias-based policing training, implicit bias training. One of the things that we had established when I was in California, and we're going to reestablish here, and we're going to begin to have conversations with institutions of higher learning is a history and policing class. And so that our officers understand that the badge that we wear so proudly today didn't always shine so brightly. And how particularly in our communities of color, there's a reason why a distrust exists between law enforcement in our community, and why you need to try harder in some parts of our city than you do in others. And there's a reason for that. And educating our officers with that, particularly on the front end, is extremely important for them to understand our community. Coupled with that is a way we're going to get our academy out of the walls of the academy and inside our communities, particularly our most vulnerable communities, so that the first time officers go out in certain parts of our city is not the first time. The first time they go out to some areas of our city cannot just be when they've graduated and they're fully vested and armed. It's got to be before. They have to talk to their community so that they can understand what their community needs are, and that their community can learn from what type of officer is going to be providing their security in the years to come. Another thing that we need to do is we need to be more transparent with use of force. We're going to be working on a platform where our community and internally and externally will be able to show and see how this department uses force. In what situations, again, with whom, in what areas of city, on what type of calls, et cetera. We need to be transparent in that arena, particularly because it's one of the most important things that's affecting our country in American law enforcement. But more importantly, it is a tool to see if what agencies are doing from a training perspective, from a de-escalation perspective, from initiatives, from policies, are they working? And oftentimes we put up policies and procedures, but never have a gauge as to see if they're working or not. And so we will have a tool that will enable us to see that and be transparent to our community at the same time. I've been very impressed with the support that we've gotten from our city leaders, from state leaders, from federal leaders. And it's been very impressive. The outreach that we've done with certain groups, whether it be, Safer Dallas, or whether it be the Rotary or the Chamber or other groups when they've asked for help. And quite frankly, what I've asked is, I don't need more vests. I don't need bullets, and I don't need guns. What I need is seating. What I need is a reserve so that this department can identify things that our community needs when we are in areas that we are, again, equally working as hard to take the criminal element off the street as we are building community trust. And we need somewhere where we can tap in and say, hey, you know what? I need to give this elementary school, every kid needs a backpack here in this area that we've been focused on in this crime grid. We need to partner with this elementary school. We need to partner with ISD. I cannot tell you the importance that I place on our school system. And I've spoken with Dr. Hinojosa and the importance and the partnership that I want to have with our school, with Dallas ISD and others, to ensure that we strengthen these young minds, because that is key to a safer Dallas. We're going to be using the same map. We're going to be in our neighborhoods. We're going to take the criminal element off our streets to keep our community safe. That's a promise. But another promise equal is to make sure that we're going to be in our communities spreading positivity, ensuring that we're out there, ensuring that we humanize each other. I can't wait as we start slowly coming out of the pandemic, meeting face-to-face, having conversations, face-to-face conversations where we can sit down together as a community, break out in groups and community with officers, having conversations about what affect them, how they want to be treated, and how officers want to be perceived as well. And that takes work, and we need to do that. Again, I'll finish as similarly to how I started, in that I'm glad we can't do this alone. We definitely need the partnership with our district attorney's office and Judge Creuzot, who shares the same mindset with regards to the violence in our city that we can't tolerate. And then we need to find stronger long-term solutions. But I can guarantee you this, we're going to need to do it together. And because that's the only way that we're going to have success. And the men and women of the DPD are committed to a safer Dallas. And our goal is to ensure and do our best to make Dallas one of the safest, largest cities in this country. And I think we can do that collectively and together. I'm very fortunate to be here. It's time to roll up our sleeves and get to work. But I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. I feel there's excitement in the air. I sense it from the men and women that I work with. I sense it from, the community groups that I've been working with, and excited to continue what's been started here in these last 3 months. So thank you very much. And again, happy to be here.
Okay, thank you, Chief Garcia. Now we're in the question portion of the presentation. So if anybody has any questions, please just type them in the chat, and we'll read them to Chief Garcia or Judge Creuzot or Councilmember West or Commissioner Garcia.
If folks can't figure out how to use the chat and you want to just unmute and ask a question, I think that's okay too.
May I bring up another initiative? I was trying to cut it short on time, but I can add one thing in.
Please.
Okay, so one of the things that I discovered in my office when I got there is a lot of hardworking people, but we really didn't understand what we were doing. And we didn't understand it because we weren't really keeping track of what we did in an organized manner and with a focus. And I'll give you an example. When I started in the DA's office back in 1982, all of our dispositions were written on a piece of paper. When I got there on January 1 of 2019, we were using the same piece of paper, written by hand, turned into somebody, and turned into reports that nobody audited or verified. We had no idea how many hands these numbers went through and whether they were accurate. In fact, the man who was working there was from South Korea. He's South Korean, and his work visa ran out and he had to go back. So we jumped in to see exactly what he was doing, and we couldn't tell how he came to those numbers. So I have some very creative members of my staff, and they found a program called Airtable, and we are able to use it to digitally keep our statistics. And we were comparing them to the county's numbers of what we were doing. And so right now the county is working out a program to create Airtable for us, where it will interface with the county system so that we can verify what we're doing and audit what we're doing and keep track. One of the things that we found out, and that in 2019, and I'm going to use 2019 because it's the only full year that we had because of the pandemic, we wanted to know, were we being effective in dealing with violent crime? And we wanted to know whether we were being effective with felony offenses. And so we looked at our most concerning, of course, offenses being murder, sex assault, and especially child sex assault cases. And then we looked at felony cases generally. And we increased the number of murder trials and child abuse trials from 2018. We increased the number of convictions and decreased the number of acquittals. In other words, we did a better job trying the cases. And then when we looked at the total scope of felony offenses, but especially the violent offenses, because that's where juries will assess substantial number of years, we actually saw that for the Dallas County DA's office, the juries and the judges assessed somewhere between 13 and 14,000 years of prison time. So if there's any idea that we're not working with our partners and our partners are not working with us, that being the law enforcement agencies, that's not true. And so what we're doing in order to work with Chief Garcia and the other chiefs on things like focused deterrence, when he talks about at-risk individuals, we need to have a system. He has a system he's worked out through an academic at University of Texas at San Antonio. We're doing it with some of our other partners from University of South Florida, but it's the same thing. And so we are now looking at some of the systems that we have, because we can't, if we don't have robust data about individuals who are doing the things that are violent in the community and putting them and us at risk of more violent crime, we don't know who to focus on. So we're in a process now of working with our law enforcement partners to get a more robust data system and that we share it across platforms, because police chief may find somebody who seems to be at risk, but if he doesn't know what they're doing in Garland or Mesquite or Capel or whatever, then it can't assess that person properly, and they go unnoticed. And so we need to share, we need to collaborate, and the district attorney's office is willing to work with this chief and all of our chiefs so that we can get a more robust look at who it is that threatens our community to the extent that we can, and then work with our partners like Unlocking Doors. Like he said, we're going to go personally and intervene with these individuals, give them an opportunity to change their behaviors. But that's where we need our community partnership with Unlocking Doors and others to provide the services on the way out, whatever it is, be it mental health, be it jobs, be it education, or any other thing, substance abuse treatment, understanding where you're going in a gang. There's no positive outcome by being in a gang. The only thing that's going to happen is you're going to die or go to prison. And we need to help our young people understand that and get them out of that lifestyle. We'll reduce crime. We know we will. It's been done in other cities. And so that's one of the initiatives that we are interested in, we're working on, but we cannot do it without collaboration with our law enforcement partners and, quite frankly, with our cities and with Dallas County. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Judge Creuzot. We appreciate that. Chief Garcia, we do have a question for you. Have you set up teams that will focus on street racing and random gunfire almost every night in Oak Cliff?
So great question. And I'll say this from let me just deal with the random gunfire. You know, I'll tell you what, if there's one thing that I've heard consistently has been that's one of the issues. It's difficult for us oftentimes because, as we hear, it's a lot of people could be in their backyard and other things. So it's somewhat difficult for us to triangulate on where they're at. But certainly we want everyone calling the police. We know that our MPOs and we know that our stations are keeping track of these calls so that we can have an area for where to make contact with if we've identified a certain area. But the other dynamic we need to make sure is that random gunfire, we're not sure it's random gunfire until we go out and investigate. So please, I certainly don't want a level of someone thinking someone else will call or what have you. Please always call us because we don't know what is on the other end. There could be a victim for every shot that we hear. So that's very important. And so that is one thing with regards, not in every area, but particularly in our violent crime plan, where we have over 49 grids throughout the city that we've identified as our highest areas of concern with regards to violence and recurring violence, whether it be aggravated assaults, shootings, which includes shootings, homicides, robberies, things of that nature. And so we're hopeful that we will have the officers in the right spots, in the right times as best we can. So we're hopeful that all of that will begin to reduce as a rising tide tends to lift all ships. What I'll say with regards to the racing operations, we have started a task force with racing. One of the things that we need to do is coordinate not just the enforcement side, but with some engineering, meaning, and we have, engineering, that means setting up barriers that will not impede the flow of traffic at certain intersections, but that will make the intersection so pleasant for these individuals to do their racing. And I'll tell you, the officers have done an amazing job just since the month of February. The task force has made over 2,300 vehicle stops just for street racing operations. They've given out 403 hazardous citations. They've given out over 1,800 regulatory citations. They've given 169 spectator citations. They've towed 290 vehicles in the operation. They've responded to over 2,200 calls. They've made 57 felony arrests, 369 misdemeanor arrests. They've made 52 gun cases off these individuals involved in street racing. They've made 81 drug cases, and they've recovered 9 stolen vehicles off the individuals involved in the street racing issues that we have in our city. I know it's no solace to anyone. This is certainly not simply a city of Dallas issue. It is a nationwide issue. But certainly we're going to do it with a combination. We're not going to cite or arrest our way out of street racing. We're going to have to do it with a combination of enforcement and engineering to ensure that these individuals don't find the city of Dallas and our intersections very appealing to do their stunts.
Thank you, Chief. It's great to hear. We have about 5 minutes left. Dr. Garcia, did you want to briefly tell us some about the county's program and that's doing in collaboration with the local law enforcement agencies?
Well, thank you so much, Chief Garcia, again, for your leadership. John Creuzot, our DA, thank you. I think Dallas County is working with the city of Dallas, Honorable West, and all of us together to be sure that those resources that you talk about in your programs, that you talk about in your diversion programs, are funded. I mean, the reality is that we like it or not, it takes money. And I know that we continue to work with the city, with the bridge, with different initiatives, with over $1 million. And obviously, we're also very conscientious about the deflection center that the city is working on. We are committed to, help the city of Dallas. We also have partnerships with St. Jude and, of course, St. Jude Permanent Housing, in which we are very involved to be sure that we have transitional housing, for some ex-offenders. So I want to just before Councilman West close to say that from our part, Dallas County Commissioner's Court, we are committed to continue to help you both to achieve your goals and obviously reduce crime in the city of Dallas and Dallas County. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Councilman West, for your leadership as well.
And I'll jump in now. Thank you, Commissioner, and to all the staff that put this together, to the Chief and the DA for being on here. I did want to, well, in a second, have there's a couple questions in the chat we weren't able to get to tonight. Based on time, we will get responses. Or actually, Chief, you see that very last question down there? I think you could probably knock that out in a minute or less from Steve Springfield. And then there's a longer question from Chad Cook that we can probably get a response in writing on that one. So as I close, I'll turn it over to you to answer that last question if you're willing, Chief, just to put you on the spot one more time. Since you seem pretty good in the hot seat. So I'll give that to you here in a second. But I think the most important thing, one of the most important things that was said tonight by Commissioner Garcia and then by both the Chief and the DA is that it's important that we're working together. And what I'm seeing tonight with the rapport from the Chief and from Judge Creuzot is there is more than a willingness, but a strong desire to work together, to communicate, and to make sure we have one criminal justice system. And not without being critical of past administrations or anything, I haven't always seen that since I've been a resident of Dallas or even as a council member. And so it's very exciting to me to just see that you guys have this rapport and it seemed like you're very excited to work together and are trying to align with issues. As some of our neighbors have pointed out, I get calls and emails every day about street racing. I get calls every day about random gunfire. Public safety continues to be the #1 thing in Oak Cliff that I get calls about. And I will tell neighbors, like, this is not an easy solution. Neither of those two topics are. And if you have not done a ride along, I've done a few of them now, and it is an eye-opening experience. So you can see exactly what our officers deal with on a nightly basis. I encourage you to go on a ride along on a Friday or Saturday night, and just kind of see, the complexities that come along with policing. It's not easy, and these guys do a really great job. So I'll just finish that out, and I'll turn it over to the Chief Garcia to take that last question.
Thank you, Councilmember. I'm not on mute. No, I'm good. So the last question, no, please, you need to, I would ask the question. The question was, should we call 911 with regards to, does that help or hurt us to call, if the public calls 911 to report crime and suspicious activity? Absolutely. It absolutely helps us. We can't do this without you. You need to help us be the eyes and ears, which what true community policing is all about, is to help us and partner with the police department. And so we need that. We need you to call. The other dynamic too is when I set up the officers in certain areas, we base that on certain factors and criteria. And a lot of that is based on calls for service, the actual crimes that occur, because that's what enables departments to figure out how much staffing they need to put in certain areas of any city. We can't do this again without you. And so we definitely need you to call 911. We definitely do. Let me just take a quick stab. I'll say this because I wanted to end this on a positive too, Councilmember, with that question with regards to are there other county programs that we've seen other places that could help the city of Dallas and our county. I will tell you that being from another state, another area, how fortunate we are. There are things that this city and this county has that I haven't seen in the 30 years that I've been in law enforcement. I think as everything, we could always probably get better at communication and ensure that we're not operating in different silos and have those communications open. But when you look at certain programs like Right Care, and that's combining an officer and a clinician and a medic to deal with our mentally ill. When you look at our Office of Integrated Public Safety Solutions that we have, that we've recognized as a city that a police department cannot be the only entity that's going to bring us into a safer Dallas. That mentality and those systems, I feel very fortunate that we have here. So I'll tell you, in my experience, I feel I have more to work with here than I have had in the past. And there's always ways to get better, don't get me wrong, but I feel incredibly fortunate that we have so many, I have so many resources to bear that we could always improve on communication, but I think we have something here that I hadn't personally seen before.
Chief, we have just one more question from Christina Milton Crane. It's how will constitutional carry affect your department?
Well, I'll say this, and I've made no secret about it. When this came out, I actually went to Austin and spoke at a press conference with not only other associations, but with other police chiefs. It's not very positive. I'm not happy about it in the least bit, and I don't know any other police chief that is. I don't. What the question is, and I don't mean to have a cop out here, no pun intended. But until I know it's going through a lot of revisions. And so I have been a little bit wary to comment on it until I see what finally comes out of Austin with regards to it. I know that there's a lot of concerns. I mean, I'll just say this in the interest of time. We put our police officers through, it's not easy to pass the handling of a firearm, qualifications and things like that, to have no criteria for training, to not even know where the safety is or how to operate it. How to store a weapon. Those are just the tip of the iceberg. So we'll have to wait and see what finally comes out. But certainly every police chief in the state is a little bit anxious to see what comes out. And then we'll have to go from there.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Appreciate that. Councilmember West, did you want to close us out?
I think I pretty much did. Thanks again for everybody for being here, for your interest in what's going on in the city, and especially for our officials here who joined us and gave us their perspectives. And y'all be safe and have a good night. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.